Hi, Jolie. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Want to check, is it good? The sign behind me?
Yes.
Okay. It's yeah, good. Just want to make sure. Thank you. Julie, I still see the different black on top of the slide. Yeah, there's still a little thing.
Let me see if I pulled it over.
Hi, June.
Hi, Rose. How are you?
I'm good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us.
Um, Very honored to be here. Hi,
Happy
Anthony.
New Year, Rose.
Happy New Year.
I think we will start as people go in. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our second session in the Innovate 360 series, designed to give faculty, staff, and students a clear view of how ideas become real-world impact, from identifying unmet needs to product development to market analysis, and ultimately to the practical realities of scaling. Innovation translation is not a mystery, it is a process. And this series is intended to make the process visible end to end. This section is particularly fitting as it is presented in partnership with the Hopkins Business of Health Initiative, reflecting our shared focus on rigorously connecting health innovation with business, policy, and implementation realities. Today's Innovate 360 section features Rose Wang, founder and CEO of 1104 Health. I first learned about Rose's work at the Johns Hopkins Innovation Summit this past September, where she shared the personal origin of 1104 Health, her experience navigating the difficulty of finding an appropriate clinical trial for her late husband. That experience exposed a structural failure in the healthcare system that many of us study but few confront so directly. Rose's work sits at the intersection of oncology, patient access, and venture building. Trained as a scientist and entrepreneur, she made a deliberate decision to pursue scalable, sustained impact through company formation rather than a nonprofit model. Her company addressed a persistent and operationally hard problem in cancer care, connecting patients, providers, and clinical trials in ways that actually function in clinical setting. Today, Rose will walk us through the reasoning behind that choice, that deliberate choice to form a company instead of a nonprofit, and introduce her 7P framework for building mission-driven ventures. Many of us identify gaps through research. Rose's work exemplifies the kind of innovation transition ITC aims to service, where unmet needs are clearly defined, solutions are built with real user in mind, and impact is pursued through systems that can be sustained and scaled to serve the public. So please join me in welcoming Rose Wang.
Well, thank you, Anthony. That was quite an introduction. I don't know how to follow up. And good afternoon, everyone. It's a distinct honor for me to be speaking with you. Can I just get a quick show of hands? How many are faculty? How many are students? Or are you all faculty?
Faculty, raise your hands.
Hey, faculty.
Right. I think we got maybe 25% faculty. Yep, great. Thank you. The rest are students. Great. It's a mixed audience. I love it. So I have just a couple slides, but it's very informal talk. When Anthony and I met and we had a preparation session just before the holiday break, he asked me to really talk about some of the thinking process behind it. But I thought I would ground the talk and with my personal story, the urgent story first. So I'm going to share a couple slides, also the solution itself, just so everybody can wrap their heads around what it is that we've decided to build and how it started and where I'm going with this next, and the challenges that I have encountered, and some have overcome and some yet to be overcome, but we're in that stage of getting to scaling right now. So give me a second, let me find my slides. Can you see my slides?
Good.
Okay, so this is kind of the agenda, identifying pain points, what's the solutioning process, the business model. The solutioning process also includes what Anthony talked about, nonprofit versus because of the mission orientation and the mindset that I think is very critical for making it happen. This was my husband, late husband, Robert. He passed on November 4th, 6 years ago, and hence the name 1104 Health. It's in his honor. He was diagnosed at the beginning. He was a retired Army officer. We were both, he was senior vice president of a global IT firm. So we both, between us, 5 degrees, both in systems and IT, reasonably educated, I would say. But when he was diagnosed early February in 2019, actually he started exhibiting stroke-like symptom. I took him to local hospital ER, and within 1 weekend, basically, he was diagnosed with this metastatic disease. And we were completely shocked because we were both cancer naive and health system naive. And his personality was such that he wanted to get treated right away. He said, "Doc, I like you, I trust you, just cut this bad baby out and get me on the way." That was literally how he talked. So within 2 weeks, we got on treatment right away. And one of the things that kept haunting me for a long time after he passed was what went wrong. There was a sign, there were clues all along the way. One of the first clues was this. The doctor who treated us, of course, we were in the community setting, and because he didn't want to fly around and find second opinions, and he said, after that first meeting, he said, "There's this great new standard of care. President Carter was done it. Let's do it, but insurance takes usually about a week to get approved." Well, he called me that afternoon and said, "Great news! You got approved in 2 hours. We can get you scheduled in 2 days." That was clue number one, and then there were many other clues along the way. So he failed the first line of standard of care. By that time, I had learned enough. I had quit whatever I was doing in my job. I had sold a business actually the year before. So I was kind of semi-retired and trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and volunteered. I started volunteering at a cancer research foundation. and everybody at the foundation said, you've got to get Foundation One panel. I didn't know what Foundation One was. So at our next visit, I asked the doctor, can we get Foundation One testing? And the response was, oh, you don't need it. Not right now, because we're already infusing him with this immunotherapy. It's great. You don't need that, and we'll figure it out. So that was clue number 2 from a clinical perspective, not guiding decision making from using precision medicine that was already kind of standard of care but not really being adopted, and that problem still persists today. Precision medicine testing adoption rate is still at subpar. In some cases, 20%.
Current is alert.
I'm sorry. And so then we went on another line of treatment. And at the beginning of that, he said, this is a great therapy. It's got great efficacy. It will melt away all of the tumors. In some cases, you may be NED. You may be lucky to do that. But if you're not, it will work very, very fast and very good. And of course, we got very excited about that. And he said, the only problem is it will gain, you will develop drug resistance. So we'll have to figure out what the next thing is. Well, like, great, he's thinking ahead. Well, the second surprise was that treatment lasted a little over 4 months. And that's when we were told there were no more options. He said, you can go home and be comfortable, or I can put you on chemotherapy. Or you can look for a clinical trial. So that was a devastating day. I would never forget that. We promptly got connected and for a second opinion at an academic center at, somebody was known for treating his type of tumor. And I was very organized because of my background. I had all the data, his symptoms, his titration of the different drugs. I took all of that data with me along with his binder of visits. And within basically 15 minutes, we knew we missed the big one. The big one was a pivotal registrational phase 3 trial that was going on, looking for patients just exactly like him at diagnosis. So he was no longer eligible because he was no longer treatment naive. And the rest of the story was very sad, but what got me started thinking about building this was after he passed, I kept thinking of all these different clues that didn't make sense, because the second opinion doctor and became, the treating doctor really could answer a lot of the questions we had earlier in the treatment process, but I couldn't understand why the first doctor, who seemed so trustworthy, that didn't know those things or didn't provide us even the thought process of we should have considered clinical trial from day one, given his diagnosis. That was just, he didn't seem dumb. He didn't seem out of date. Well, he could have been out of date, but he didn't seem dumb. So I just kept thinking about that after Robert's passing and started digging into data and found out at the time, this was 2019, 2020, it wasn't even a 7% number, but 7% number is ASCO published at this 2025. Even though clinical trials are up to 50% of patient population are, but here's the other devastating number. Digging through, 84% of patients say they would consider trials as treatments if they're doctors. So that gave me the clue to go to looking at all the human connections. And the human connections are patient, treating physician, and academic subspecialists. Why? Because 85% of cancer patients are treated in the community like we were, or started the journey in the community. And then I start looking at the doctors, and I realize I have to focus more and more on the doctors, because even though we were not underserved in any way, and still not, We relied on our doctors to tell us those things. And why would the doctors not tell us? Well, there were facts, right? At any given time now, over 3,000 oncology trials, treatment trials going on. And FDA is doing a great job of approving faster and faster these innovative drugs. So most of the doctors are overwhelmed because they have no time. They have to see 20 to 40 patients a day. So that made some sense, but I keep digging. I keep talking to other people. After talking to about 200 people, what are the people I've talked to? Patients, of course, caregivers, oncologists. I didn't have access to a lot of oncologists, but I talked to as many as I could. Patient navigators, pharmaceutical company representatives. And after talking to about 200 people, I realized this was a real problem. Despite the fact that clinical trial accrual has been the number one pain problem for pharmaceutical companies for, let's say, the last 20 years. And hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested in this space. None has really moved the needle. So that's the tip of the iceberg. But what are the reasons? And that's where I spent a lot of time thinking, but also I said, this is a problem that still needs to be solved. I can solve this problem, but is this really the problem to solve for? That's the differences, right? There's overall problem, but what's the key problem that hasn't been solved that really made it? So again, talking to more people, another 100 interviews later, I came to the conclusion it was business model. It was misaligned incentives. And at that point, I thought I can go ahead and form a company. And then I faced the choices of, do I create this as a nonprofit or do I do it as a for-profit company? And I'll come back to this. I ultimately chose for-profit. The nonprofit, I'll just say very quickly, it's not an evergreen model. You have to keep raising money in order to, it's a service base and keep raising money every year, and it's difficult. You can still make it work, but you don't have all the tools. For-profit company has a lot more tools. You can raise equity, capital, different fund sources of funds to really build this up. So I ultimately chose the for-profit route, and then with that decision, I really have to figure out how what I need to build. So this is 1104 Health was born. The mission was to connect those 85% of cancer patients who are treated locally in communities to subspecialists, because the community docs are generalists. They play a big role. They can get appointments quicker. They are really, really, they pay a lot of attention to their patient relationship because their livelihood depends on having those patient relationships longitudinally. The academic doctors, they subspecialize. They run the investigational trials, and they have advanced treatments like cell therapies and CAR Ts. And after just talking to enough of the 20 doctors, I found out that they don't really collaborate. I couldn't understand why. So it goes back to misaligned incentives. And the organizations they work for, what they are, their goals, their performance goals. And so I said, if I can figure out a way to align incentives, create a business model that would naturally get these two groups of doctors to talk to each other, then with the patient in the middle, a patient could be shared between community and academic doctors, and then really get the best treatment wherever they need to be treated. And then, over a period of time, we'll have better outcomes and perhaps even saving money for the payers. So that's when I started prototyping. So let me show you where our solution is.
A key feature of the shared care platform is our catalog of trials. Each includes a brief summary of key decision factors and a video from the clinical investigator. Use the AI-fueled prescreeners to quickly assess your patient's eligibility. You could also submit the patient abstract to 1104 Health and we'll do the matching and surface all relevant trials in your region. To learn more about the clinical investigator or find a subspecialist for your complex case, search using the regional network directory. You can connect directly with the investigator via HIPAA-compliant messaging for curbside consultation, whether to learn more about a trial or get expert opinions on patient cases. When you're ready to refer a patient, the built-in AI will seamlessly convert the conversation into a patient referral. In your referral section, you can view the patient record and all related messages in one place, with the option to add team members, like your coordinator, to help schedule visits and manage the process. The patient referral can be bi-directional, and 1104 Health provides free patient navigation.
So hopefully this gives you a sense of the tech solution that we have arrived to solve this problem. And of course, that leaves the big question: what is the business model? This is our how we've gone to market and how we are making money. We sell an annual subscription to pharmaceutical companies. We also are marketing to employers for case-based fees. And when the money revenue goes into one pot, we reserve a portion of the pot to pay oncologists. We pay community oncologists and academic oncologists for doing something that they should be doing but not being reimbursed by the health system. What is not being reimbursed? For community oncologists is considering trials as treatment options. That is an unfunded mandate. For academic oncologists, it is being responsive to curbside consults coming from these community oncologists. And what really then is happening is both types of doctors, because they're more incentivized to do the right thing beyond just doing the right thing, it's going to benefit the patient and everybody else. So we become, this very quickly, the folk, right? First of a kind. We're using AI to power a digital oncology network, and this network is region-based. So it's relevant to those groups of doctors as well as payers. And we gave them a tool set. This tool set really basically collaborate, it's HIPAA compliant, it's all the other laws compliant, legally compliant, and it's not violating anti-kickback laws because it's reimbursing doctors for time and effort they spend on collaborating and care coordinating. And we also run regional roundtables to help educate and transfer knowledge. So to pull it all together, what I have learned so far is customer discovery is key. When you have a pain point like I felt personally, and a lot of people unfortunately still feel that, right, is just the tip of the iceberg. And you have to do enough. I mentioned 200 customer discovery calls, additional interviews, is to put together the picture. How big and how deep is this iceberg? I felt the pain point, and what is the magnitude of the problem? Because it's the mission orientation, it's very, very hard to not keep for-profit. For me, it took me a few months to figure this out. I talked to quite a few nonprofit leaders about doing this, solving this problem, and people continue to misunderstand our structure sometimes and just assume it's nonprofit because it has that nonprofit flair. But we're very much using all the tools a for-profit organization has. And I think we are going faster because of that, solving the problem more completely. spend a lot of time thinking through what is our differentiation. So I kind of alluded to the difference between what is a problem, what you're solving for, which really leads to your unique selling point or differentiation versus the general problem space. People very quickly compare us to a whole host of companies doing patient recruitment or clinical trial technology. And what we are solving for, we complement just about everybody in the marketplace. We're a unique solution because what we're solving for. We're solving for the gap between community oncology and academic oncology. And that took a number of months to arrive and took many, many conversations. And that goes to my rule of thumb, this 7P framework for the business model. It's easy to start with patient, and it was very hard to get to provider, but once I got to oncologists and start talking to them, I realized, wow, there's a lot more to it. But getting to talk to health system, provider system, was even harder, right? So, and then understanding the business of, when I say pharmacy, it's the drug piece. Oncology business, any line of service, if you will, you want to look at line of service, how much of it comes from drugs, devices, and services delivered. In oncology, pharmacy or drug piece is 60 to 80% of the chunk. So understanding how drugs are getting into the formulary, how that goes into the how that contributes as the single biggest factor to making money or not making money was part of that discovery for me as well. Pharma obviously plays a very big role, and they're easy to access, easier than provider and provider systems. Payers, they're very opaque, very difficult to do the right kind of customer discovery, but you can get there. So value-based care is what payers are pushing more and more, both commercially and CMS. And that leads me to policy. Policies from, I'm not talking about just a regulatory framework, but policies from CMS, policies from FDA can either be a tailwind or a headwind. And in our case, FDA has been making changes in terms of diversity, trial participation, in terms of sourcing more cancer patients to fill phase 3 trials in the US. Those are tailwinds for us. So it's very important to look at all 7 dimensions, 7 Ps. And my team and I, we talk about we're playing 3D chess on a 7-dimensional chessboard. Is this, when you can, at any given time, you can see solutions picking 2 or 3, maybe 4 dimensions to solve as the entry point. But until you can really speak to all 7 dimensions in healthcare, the digital health solution probably will not be sustainable for the long term. And that's how I look at it. So what's my personal lesson, and I'll just cap this with, I have to lead with personal growth before I know the team and the business can grow. So that's a lot of experimentations, a lot of iterations, and iterate faster. I was trained as a computer scientist, and my previous 4 businesses were all software and IT based in different industries. So I knew I could learn a new industry, but it took me a couple years to realize I really need to not just speak the language of cancer, which I did after taking care of Robert for a year. I had to learn to speak the language of clinical research. So I did a program at Harvard Medical School so I could speak the language of clinical research. And in that kind of growth led my team to get into more of those, and therefore we had compounded that effect to grow as a business. So that's my talk. I think I'm right on 30 minutes, 25 minutes.
Thank you so much, Rose. Thank you for sharing your personal story and also how you identified the gap. So we would like to open to the floor for question. I'm sure that I have a lot, but I just let the floor to come up with first.
Would you just facilitate? I don't know. Can you just help call who has questions?
Anyone
Yeah.
have question, you can raise your hand. Yes, Megan?
Yes, hi, my name is Megan. I'm a student in the health economics and outcomes research group, but my past life is in pharma, R&D, and medical affairs. And I don't have a ton of research and a ton of experience in the oncology research area, but I know a lot of pharma groups have their own. And I know this is not you're filling a very unique gap, which I think is so exciting. And how does that collaborate or feed in with sort of the trial recruitment in helping the tools that I know that a lot of pharma companies are using for matching?
Yeah, great question. It's complementary, right? So our tool really, if you think about it, is a way of generating referral pipeline for those trials. And it's a way, there are several ways to look at it. One pharma client, because R&D expenses getting so much more expensive, right? Per patient for oncology trials, budget has gone from 100K per patient for a phase 3 trial to now 250K, so 2.5 times. So there 40% of that is patient recruitment, and they are so one client is trying to shrink the number of research sites,
Oh,
which means they have to build referral
or
pipeline.
travel or
Yeah, or travel, right? So
it's hard.
that's one of the alignments for us.
Okay.
And we are 76 seems to be a number. 76% of oncologists, this is ASCO's survey last year, have no access to trials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was going to be another one of my questions. Is pharma open to, with these community centers? I would, from my experience, I would think they would be, to training new investigators to get those sites online to like treat the patients there as a sub-I.
Yes, they are very open to it, but the reception is not good.
Oh,
Yeah, many oncologists are not willing to take on the extra work, or it will take some time. That's
true. It is or have to hire another person.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a big infrastructure issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Brittany?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your business model. It's definitely very impactful work that you're doing. I'm Brittany Jenkins-Lord. I'm a assistant professor in biochemistry and molecular biology. I'm also part of the ITC. I had a quick question. So I work in breast cancer disparities, and a huge problem we have just across the board in disparities is getting minoritized populations into clinical trials. So I'm wondering, has your company seen any headway in that? Are you seeing any improvements on kind of bringing those populations to the appropriate clinical trials just through your business model? Is that something you track or?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that everyone should be aware of, right? Because we have different biology, and it's an ancillary goal that we have. It's not our, I think we focus on patients in community, and as a result, the underserved populations will be better served. That's how we look at it. Yeah.
Great.
I would tell you that, in fact, my previous meeting with my team, undertesting is a huge problem.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, thank you.
Greg?
Hi there. Sorry for your loss. I commend you on your response over these years to really develop something that was needed. I am a physician, and I actually advise some of these clinical trial companies who are navigating to get to identify physicians who want to be the recruitment site for trials for a variety of things, not just cancer. And it seems like of your seven Ps, they're not really a P, but they are I guess they're aligned with pharma to some degree.
Yeah.
But they seem like your competitor. I wonder how it works with I wonder how it works with a physician who can they do both? Can they be a site for a clinical trial unit? I assume that you're aligning so that you're not making them choose one path versus the other, but sort of raise all boats. Is that your strategy?
Absolutely. I really, Dr. Kirk, it's good that you raised that up. I think in medicine, I have experienced so far, and you all have a lot more experience than I do. There's a tunnel vision kind of thing. We have a problem, we got to just solve this problem, and to the detriment of all others. But really, clinician, if you are a clinician, a company has to be in in every clinician's shoes and say, I have all the tools I have. Do I have awareness of these tools? So our solution actually is not just on referral. Referral could be an internal referral as well. So for a large private practice that would have a good number of treatment trials available, say if they're part of Sarah Cannon Research Institute, they have great trials. But nobody has all the trials, is the bottom line, right? So our tool would actually have a way to say, here are all the trials within 50 miles of this patient. And because your duty as a clinician, first duty is to help your own group, we'll have those on the top. And then the second chunk are the other ones in a region, right? It actually aligns with a lot of how a lot of doctors think.
Okay. You mentioned geography. 50 miles is not very far in many rural communities to have to travel to an oncologist. And it seems like there would be, they're still going to have to likely get in to see an oncologist at some point, but that may be weeks and miles down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about efforts with earlier, like with primary care, internal medicine, or you're very oncology focused, but a rate limiting step is getting in to see the oncologist from the beginning.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. If you think of this as a continuum for a patient journey, it starts with diagnosis and primary care. We have a vision that's very grand, is actually to expand into other specialties. We've had requests coming from GI doctors, coming from pulmonologists, from dermatologists to actually string this together because here's the fragmentation of our healthcare system. It's not just between specialties, but even within the same specialties, right? There's this generalist and specialist dynamic. And for those of us who fortunate to have really good commercial insurance or even traditional Medicare, you can go see anybody you want. So again, ASCO publication last year says 40% of cancer patients in the US experience fragmentation. So that's really, ultimately, that's the problem we're solving for.
And, it seems like the incentives for the providers is really about the initial referral. But so what happens down the road when they have to navigate the distance that maybe the follow-up is with the community oncologist with the periodic check-in at the academic center? How does that work? And is that incentivized, or is that sort of just defaulting back to natural patterns of care?
Great question. Well, we've been up and running for a year, just 13 months. And what we're seeing is the incentive of this longitudinal care coordination. So far, our business model is, because we reimburse for not only the initial trial thing, but also for curbside consults. That is a way to tie some of it together. It's still half-half, I would say. Some of it is natural pattern. The other half is this.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Natasha have a question on the chat. I can read it.
Yes,
In your
please.
in your decision to go with for-profits funding, how did you decide to account for variation in current and future policies?
This is a great question. um, just being agile is the way that we're considering, right? So let's say if this thought has come to my mind more than once, especially recently, if Medicare for all comes to play, it will take a few years. Let's just say, whatever reason, 2026 we become Medicare for all. That would completely disrupt the way that we're going to market. And how would I respond to that? How would our business respond to that? Right. So those are the kind of things we just have to be super agile and vigilant, and again, going to all 7 Ps and keep up with that.
So do you continue to talk to this 7 group of people, or like
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So there's another question from the chat. What kind of initial seed funding did you require, and what organizations did you reach out to?
This is a very practical question. So I seeded the initial development myself. I was fortunate to have the capital to do it. And once we had a prototype and started looking for that experimentation, actually Hopkins was our first collaboration partner, and we had to fund an observational study. And to come up with that funding, I went to friends and family and raised what they call the friends and family round, and along with my own capital. But last year, I decided that this is a venture-worthy business, and so I went to market and raised venture funding.
I see. I want to get back into your process of thinking about for-profit and non-profit. You mentioned you have talked to other people, quite a few on non-profits, but at the same time, you mentioned that other people always kind of see your company as a non-profit. So can you get us deeper onto this? Because I feel like in our ITs and in the ITC, we have a group about compass. That's about a heart, how to turn it. And that is always a central question, how to remain mission driven.
Remain mission driven is in your heart. And that's how I feel. We are mission driven organization. I will never change. Yes, there's a commercial aspect. I don't see a conflict. Our team does not see a conflict with that. Now, the reason why other people just assume we're a nonprofit, because when I first started solving this problem, I just started doing it without an entity, and it was nonprofit. So for those people who know me from a few years ago when I first started this, but the other people who don't know me would know us and assume there's any kind of patient solving problems for patient. It seems like nonprofit is the only way, that there's no real business model for commercial business model, I should say, for it. But my thinking process came down to two things. One was what I talked about, this evergreen aspect of for-profit versus nonprofit, the funding sources. The other aspect is actually people. After talking to quite a few nonprofit leaders, and I'm on the board of a couple, and I just finished a term on a nonprofit. Quality of talent is actually a real issue. What you can attract as team members, and the types of people that are tech forward, innovation forward, tend to only want to go to for-profit companies. And then you have tools such as equity, to incentivize them. Whereas in nonprofit, I don't have those tools. And so you get this very, that really was the one that I decided, yeah, in order to have the kind of people I wanted to have working as team members, for-profit was the best venue for solving this problem.
I see. So do you think this is a unique situation, or you always think that in multiple type of nonprofits can, because you have experienced quite a few nonprofit or talked to them, do you think that actually in those nonprofit they can be run as a commercial business model? Is that your view?
Absolutely. I think it really depends on the CEO. It really depends on the CEO and the board for a nonprofit. You can run it as a real business. Business model applies to nonprofit as well, right?
Mhm.
And you can make money as a nonprofit and reinvest that profit. They call it earnings and retained earnings. It's the same thing. So it's just a different terminology. It's the mentality of the people. So if you have a CEO who's very business savvy and your board supports that CEO, you can run a tight ship and be very can be very successful as a nonprofit. Or there's a variation. There's a combination called public benefit corporation, a B Corp, that is structurally is a commercial entity, but the covenants of signing up for B Corp ensures in governance that it's the mission orientation. So that's a hybrid. And I also talk to lawyers and other. I have a good friend of mine who is a big climate. He believes in sustainable farming and climate, and he has a company. It's a B Corp, and what he has to do to keep that as a B Corp, because there's an annual certification, there's an extra burden you have to do, but he felt that was the way for best way for his mission and funders alignment is through B Corp. So there are different tools. I would not start with this is the only way I go to solve a problem.
Yeah, that's great. ITC is all about thinking, deliver impact to the public,
Yeah.
and through in a way that is sustainable and scalable. I think you help us to think a lot on the sustainable part. Like it's possible because the engine from the revenue can help continue this
Yes.
and attract the talents. How about scalable? Can you share something on that side? That you said that you're beginning to scale, and how?
Yeah. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a few businesses, 4, and exit from 2 of them, and the 2 that we exited from both scaled, right? So I have scaling experience from past. And where we are in 1104's journey, we're just at the cusp of scaling. What does that look like? It's really about, for me as the CEO, is about organizing the right teams for the activities. I know it sounds very management 101, but it's so critical that before you scale, before you really get to, you have to be super organized. You have to say, I'm going to market with XYZ, and is it product led or is it some other thing led, right? If it's product led, it's one type of activity and you have the right people. If it's not product led scaling, what kind is it and how do you do that? So in our case, we are a combination of the innovation in our business model as well as our product. That's the combination. So it creates additional complexity, but we are first of a kind. So I'm ready for the challenge. Check back with me in a year and see how we've done. I'll probably have a lot of scars and can share with you.
So Armstrong in the chat kind of give a comment, say, great company with a promising potential to save both resources and lives of cancer patients. the very best to you and your team.
Thank you.
Anthony, so do you want to voice out, because it's quite a long question, I don't want to misinterpret.
Sure. Thanks again for this wonderful presentation and a really important gap in the clinical actually care continuum that you're trying to serve. Bloomberg News, I was looking over the holidays, actually had put out an investigative report titled "Cancer Doctors Are Making a Fortune Off Drug Trial Participants." And in fact, it showed some of the providers that were actually, in fact, referring patients were getting $250,000 or more per patient in major oncology trials. In fact, one of the clinics that they featured in Omaha, Nebraska, was raking in an astonishing, they had to enroll 200 patients actually over 15 years into various trials and had received $22 million over a period of 7 years from such actually an approach. So a couple of ethical issues arise, not so much from a for-profit model of your firm, but more so about how do you actually safeguard your firm from actually these risks? Because one would be they found out that that oftentimes actually there's a question whether standard treatment is actually being adequately represented in the dialogue about approaching actually a clinical trial or not. And the second one, of course, was that they were not disclosing that they were getting this kind of sum of money from actually referring a patient to a clinical trial. And so I'm just wondering, how does your firm manage these kinds of risks as part of your business model? Because it seems like they could be significant actually challenges in working with providers and with pharmaceutical companies with these kinds of actually sums of monies potentially being used to enroll patients.
Yeah, actually, this applies to the entire cancer care ecosystem. It's not just the private providers. You may or may not know this, academic centers have to have the right amount of industry treatment trials to make up for losses they have in other places. It's a very big, when I talked about talking to provider systems, that's when I started learning the business of cancer from the different, so it's across the board, whether you're for-profit or not for-profit, academic or community. So that's number one. Yes, the ethical issue. So we stay clear of being a recommendation engine, right? We don't recommend. We defer 100% to clinicians' own judgment. We're just there to make it convenient for them to consider treatments, trials as treatment options. Very, very clear. We're exploring partnerships with companies that can provide clinical pathways, which is really on top of formulary, is pulling in what they have contracted with which GPOs and those kind of information. So we're exploring that, but we're staying clear of being a recommender.
And is there, though, perhaps an opportunity to become someone who could provide a sense of what best practice ought to be, that the provider ought to disclose, in fact, if they're receiving a significant bonus or incentive financially from a pharmaceutical company that seeks to get, or even an academic center that seeks to get actually enrollment into their clinical trial? It just seems like the patient ought to know, and that should be part of the process, should it not?
It is the part of the, yeah, it's not anybody that I know of as a practice. Now, the Sunshine Act affords open payment portal, right? Now we are incorporating that data into our data set, foundational data set, for helping us understand what is going on. We know, like I'm in Bethesda, I know in our area there is one private practice that is known to pharmaceutical companies that they charge the highest per patient fee, and they have a very well-oiled machine for getting patients on trials. And there was some questionable behavior as a result. We have even experienced some of that from the doctors in our network. Yes, it does happen. It's unfortunate. And ethical, we have to keep that all the time. Front and center.
Yeah, that's a really creative use of the Physician Sunshine Act actually database. That's brilliant to see that coming together. I commend you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rose, for your wonderful presentation. And also, I can see a lot of innovative elements, how you align the incentives so that it makes it work. And all the best to your company. And at the end, I just want to encourage the faculty, students, staff that Innovation Translation Council is here to help you. We want to support investigators to develop products and scale solutions based on your research. So if you want to know more, we have just put on the QR code here. You can scan it and then contact us, and we're happy to help. Thank you, Rose. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. If anybody wants to reach out to me, you have my email address as well. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.